My name is Charles Harry. Today we'll be discussing the question, do earthworms show any differences in burrowing behavior into soil when they are exposed to sweet treatments like natural sugar, artificial sweetener like sweet and low, and no sweetener at all. We will be showing how that these treatments cause different reactions. Burrowing responses will be investigated by observing whether the earthworms burrowed in the soil when exposed to the control conditions, which were damp soil with no sweetener, or with sugar or sweet and low, which were mixed in the bottom layer of damp soil with plain damp soil placed on top. If the earthworms burrowed, then how long did it take to burrow? We will be calculating averages. The time to burrow in these two different sweetener test conditions will each be compared to the control separately to see if the earthworms burrow more quickly or slowly when exposed to sweetener than when in the control situation of no added sweetener. It will also be determined whether both sweeteners showed the same impact on desire to burrow or on the burrowing time. I used natural cane sugar and the artificial sweetener Sweet and Low as my experiment treatments. I felt it further expanded our current research sticking to the introduction of chemicals. And I really enjoyed feeding the earthworms during the 6 weeks of experimentation, so I was curious how they would react. The control experiment was damp soil with no sweetener. 7 of the 8 earthworms burrowed at an average of 37 seconds. Sweetener 1 was Sweet and Low. It was mixed with damp soil and then damp soil without sweetener placed on top. It took an average of 44 seconds for all 8 earthworms to burrow. Sweetener 2 was natural sugar. It was mixed in with damp soil and then damp soil without sweetener placed on top. It took an average of 23 seconds for all 8 earthworms to burrow. My hypothesis for sweetener 1 was that I believed that when the earthworm was exposed to the Sweet and Low, they will burrow quickly to get to the sweetener because they like the artificial sweetener. The reason I feel this way is because I believe that they like sweet things. They seem to dislike acidic and saline solutions. My findings did not support this. While it did take less time to burrow than other exposure treatments, such as acidic and saline, they burrowed faster with no treatment, which concludes that they like natural soil more than they like an artificial sweetener additive. My hypothesis for sweetener 2 was that I believe when the earthworm is exposed to natural sugar, they will begin to burrow rapidly and get to the mixture. The reason I feel this way is, again, I believe that they like sweet things. They seem to dislike acidic and saline solutions. My findings supported this hypothesis. They like natural sweetness. The earthworms were attracted to the natural sugar. It was the quickest burrowing time of all the experiments during our course of the experimentation. They seemed to burrow almost as fast when placing them back into their habitat, which is full of food and rich, nutritious soil. In the brief, earthworms use odor cues to locate and feed on microorganisms in soil, published in 2011, research conducted in this controlled environment so that the particular chemical introduction could be assessed individually as influencing component. They created a 4-arm olfactometer to conduct their controlled and exposed experiments. They tested it vertical and horizontal with a fungal profile to include different fruits, floral, herb, and nutty scents. Previous studies have shown how olfaction plays a major role in earthworm food foraging. Scents and smells can determine the burrowing of earthworms based on chemical composition of the soil. These findings could help locate future worm colonies based on soil content. Their findings were similar to mine in that earthworms reacted better to sugary smells and scents. While they're experimenting with groups of worms, I found that the worms did not need support in traveling to the desired location to find the sweetness. If I were to do more testing on earthworms, I would test the time that it takes for them to process food and which foods they process faster. It would be beneficial to soil additives to increase their habitat happiness and the ability to populate more in a happier, food-filled environment.